I'll say this. Tarik Skubal runs this city. Yeah, I'm still buzzing after a Friday night, even though the Tigers had two clunkers to conclude that series against the Texas Rangers in Detroit over the weekend. We are going to talk all about that. Welcome into the show. This is I'll Say This. I am Chris Castellani. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's show, at Castellani2014 on Twitter. You can find us there, CastellaniContent.com. That is getting updated every single day with the stuff that we are putting out, whether it's Tiger videos, Chris and Company, I'll Say This. All the content that we create can be found on there. If you like this podcast, we're on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and of course, we are on Apple Podcasts and we are on Spotify. Woo! Woo! That might have been a record time to get the preliminaries out of the way. Let's move ahead and let's talk about the Detroit Tigers to start. There are several topics that I want to cover today. I will talk Tarik Skubal, obviously, and there's some good and some frustrating involving his situation. None to do with Tarik Skubal. Tarik Skubal I adore, and I'm having more fun watching him than any Detroit athlete probably since Miguel Cabrera. But I want to start off by talking the Tigers, who did have a very good week. It didn't end particularly strong. They get beat up quite bad in their final two games against the Texas Rangers. It seemed like Texas just kind of came alive, really. I mean, this was an offense that was really struggling. They have DeGrom and Eovaldi going. Eovaldi was incredible on Sunday, but the offense started to wake up, and I think it will. You know, there were some series right around this time a year ago that the Tigers lost at home that we looked back on and we couldn't believe just how ridiculously poor they played. You know, whether it was getting shut out by the Marlins or losing to the Nationals, this was not one of those series. This is still a team that has a lot of the core in place that won a world championship 2 years ago. I think you have some of these guys that are going to heat up. Like Adolis Garcia was a madman in October 2 years ago. He's a multi-time All-Star. Right? You got to think he gets better. Same with Marcus Semien, who's off to a horrific start to begin this campaign. As far as the Tigers, though, when you look at the bigger picture, they swept the Rockies, which thank God the Rockies are 7-33. They just fired their manager, which I'm sure that's going to do the trick. I thought they played quite well on the whatever you want to call it, West Coast trip or just a road trip in general, where they went to Houston, Los Angeles, and Colorado. Regardless of what teams you're playing, those trips always scare me. And we've seen even some of the best Tigers teams not play particularly well in some of those locations, especially Anaheim. They won 2 of those series. I thought that was really impressive. They came back home, and you had a game on Friday that I thought was one of the more memorable Tiger games that we've seen in the last several years. And in the 9 years that I've been doing it, it was one of the more memorable that I can think of, because it was a special thing. Because last year, obviously, Skubal won the Cy Young, and we'll just jump right into it and talk about Tarik here for a second. Skubal won the Cy Young a year ago and was the best pitcher in the world a year ago. But one thing that's kind of bizarre, because we've seen it here before, is that it's almost more fun the year after they've won the Cy Young than it is the year that they win the Cy Young, because now word is out. Now, like, there's nothing left to prove. We know how good this guy is. We know he's going to go out and shove. Let's just get to the ballpark. Let's sit down and watch on TV, because it's going to be must-watch television. That's kind of where we're at with Tarik right now. Now, I will admit, and this is crazy to say because last year he was the best pitcher in the world and still is, the stretch that Tarik Skubal is on right now is better than anything that we saw from him a year ago. A year ago, he did not have a 6-start stretch in which he struck out 50 and walked 1. Every time I say that, I have to put my hands on my head just because it sounds like it's a made-up statistic. It sounds like it's not real. Like that's robotic in regards to his just efficiency on the mound. I mean, this is a guy with some of the most lethal stuff in the world. He can top 100, and we saw more 100s on Friday than we've ever seen from him. For somebody like that to have the control that he has, it has to make him just a nightmare. And he was locked in. 32 swings and misses on Friday, 12 strikeouts. I thought truly, and I stand by it, I thought it was some of the most impressive stuff that I've ever seen at Comerica Park. And thankfully that guy, pitches for our team. And it was a unique moment because it was the first game back from the long road trip where they played very well. And even though I'm disappointed with how things went against Texas over the weekend, the word is out about this team, and the how do I put this? Sorry, dead air on the radio here. The stranglehold that this team has right now is going to last through the summer. I have no doubts that they're going to be playing competitive baseball through the summer and beyond, which really is something we haven't seen here in almost a decade. Even last summer, while they were never out of it, let's be real, by the end of the summer, they had a 0.02% chance of making the postseason. That wasn't like some long competitive summer. It was on the back end. It just got crazy hot. This is going to be a team that's going to be engaging pretty much all season, and it helps with the fact that you have the best pitcher in the world that's going every fifth day. Of course, and this is just the way things are with baseball, it's the way things are with this fan base, is because of how bad it was those last two games against Texas, you start to see the hot takes, or is there any level of concern? And I think that I've been enthusiastic with this team, because why not? I mean, they have the best record in the American League and still do. 2 losses at home to Texas isn't going to change that. But I also have said pretty much every week since this season started that whatever crazy pace this team was playing at in regard to their win total, they weren't going to play at all year. I think I said 2 weeks ago they were playing at 108 win pace. I'm like, guess they're not winning 108 games. And some people took that as a knock. Some people took that as me being pessimistic and not enjoying the ride. No, it's nothing to do with pessimistic. It's just, being realistic. I think that this is a really good team. I said last week, I think that this is a team that should win the American League Central if things work out. Now, if the injuries continue to derail them, we're talking a different story. But I do think this team at close to full capacity is the best team in the Central. But we can't ignore the fact that there was a stretch there where they got some crazy contributions from guys who never contribute the way that they had for that little stretch. I mean, Zach McKinstry's finally cooled off. The guy was playing like an all-star for a month, right? Javi, we'll see what happens. That's the magical mystery to me, is because I can't imagine Javi sustains this, but like, what if he does? Same with Torkelson, who's cooled down a little bit. Some of these guys are not as hot as they were several weeks back. The pitching staff, I think, is a little bit more banged up than they were. The bullpen was not particularly good against Texas over the weekend after that first game in which Kahnle and Vest just came in and shoved. So that, look, there's some question marks. There's some concerns. You're getting closer to getting Matt Vierling back. I don't know about Wenzel. I don't know about Parker Meadows, but now Mize is on the IL. Not everything is coming up roses, but I've been very adamant from the beginning saying that the stretch that scared me for this season coming in was the first quarter of the season. I mean, I don't think this team has played a particularly easy schedule. I think there's probably some teams like Baltimore and Texas that are not as good as we expected them to be. I still think Texas ultimately turns it around. But, you start the year in LA against the Dodgers. You go to Seattle and win 2 out of 3. That's a first place team. They've had to go to Houston. They just played the Rangers. You go to Los Angeles to play Anaheim, where you never win. I mean, they've had some tough games, and in general, they've thrived. This was the stretch that scared me, because I could not, coming off of last season, have a disastrous April in which you're playing from behind. I don't like to say you can afford to lose games because you never want to, but this is the advantage that comes with getting off to a good start, is you can have a few clunkers against Texas, still look at the standings and say, oh yeah, wow, okay, we're still a first place team. There's not a whole lot to panic about. Now, one thing that people are panicking about, let me take a quick sip here. That is good diet ginger ale. Okay. I want to talk a little bit more about Tarik. I brought up the performance on Friday, but I want to take a bigger picture here and discuss Tarik Skubal as it pertains to his future in Detroit, or depending on who you ask, his lack of future. Okay. I love Detroit fans. I love Tiger fans. I think that this is amongst the best fan bases in all of sports. I think it's in many ways, when I say stereotypical, I mean it in a good way, what a stereotypical fan base should be, right? They're knowledgeable. They're passionate. I think the biggest flaw of Detroit sports fans, I think it's like this with all the teams, though it is especially true when it comes to the Tigers, is there's no fan base that I can think of that has a greater fear of loss or potential loss than Detroit fans. And when I say loss, I don't mean result in the scoreboard. I mean losing a player, okay? Because it was, I saw it on Twitter this week. I know that it was on 97.1. I saw some tweets about that. People were doing whole segments about this. Tarik Skubal is on the books for 2 more years, okay? This year and 2026. After that, he will test the free agent market and will, depending on what happens, because newsflash, a lot can change, right, in the next 2 years, will end up being one of the highest paid, maybe even the highest paid pitcher in baseball at that point. I am very confident that's how this ends. I don't believe there's going to be any extension before that. Even if there's a competitive offer on the table, I don't think Scott Boras, who is Tarik Skubal's agent, will allow that. I think this is going to go to free agency, and this is going to become the arms race. Boras did the exact same thing with a million different clients. He did it with Scherzer back in the day. He just did it with Juan Soto, and as long as guys get paid the kind of money that those guys were getting paid, Scott Boras will continue to be one of the most intriguing, best agents in all of sports, especially when you're talking about a player like Tarik, who right now is at the top of his game. As I said, a whole lot can change in 2 years. Is Tarik Skubal still going to be the best pitcher in the world? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he's going to keep throwing 100. Maybe he does. You know, I for our sake, I hope he does. But beyond that, okay, we have to accept the fact that there's going to be some uncomfortability in this process. Okay. Whether it's him testing the free agent market or in 2 years, maybe, I don't know, going somewhere else, that is a possibility. I'm not going to come on here, guys, and say, oh, don't worry about it. They're re-signing the guy. He's going to be a Tiger for life. I don't know that. And I would be lying to you. It would be very disingenuous if I came on here and told you that. I'm not sure. But the reason I bring all this up is because right now, despite the series loss to Texas, whatever, they lost their first home series of the year. Right now, Tiger fans, myself included, should be pigs in shit, okay? Right now, this team is playing at a level that we have not seen them play at in a decade, okay? So many of the things that we have complained about for so long that were embarrassing during the Avila era, right? Guys that were horribly fundamental, that were horrible with the fundamentals. I couldn't even play defense or make a throw. Terrible lineups that you could just, the worst pitchers would just carve with a knife, right? You know, pitchers that weren't executing, guys that were giving up home runs. All of that is gone. You got the deepest, best farm system in baseball right now and a super competitive major league product. That is wonderful. Like, I'm giddy. I'm doing backflips. Okay, even when we lose, I'm like, shit, it's a whatever. Ronnie Rodriguez isn't batting cleanup. I can live with myself. This is great. And yet, because you have a player, and it's a player we love, who might hit the free agent market in 2 years, people got to do this whole Eeyore shit and talk about, well, I've seen the takes. People are talking, do you consider trading him? Guys, as annoying as it was last year with this, okay, at least the team was bad at the time in which people were like, maybe you trade Skubal. Because the truth is, when a team is non-competitive, and you have a player or players that are really good and can contribute that don't fit into your window, you do trade them. That happens. That happens everywhere. That is not exclusive to Detroit. That happens to every fucking major league organization. Sans, probably the Yankees or the Dodgers have probably never done it. Every team has unloaded assets at some point when they haven't been good, right? This is completely different, okay? The core they have right now is going to stay the core that they have for a while, and that includes Tarik. I don't know what's going to happen beyond 2026, but I hate to do this as somebody who is, you know, not always got the tightest of screws going on up here, but I kind of question your sanity if you're spending your time talking about what the future is going to hold for Tarik Skubal when you have a team that is this competitive and this good, okay? If they had the Rockies record, it'd be completely different. Because at that point, the more interesting storyline is what you do with Skubal. But right now, I think you're just being a fucking buzzkill. I think that this is an issue that Tiger fans have that I understand to an extent, because we go back to the Avila era and all the players that we lost, all the players that we traded away or we lost in free agency who went on to have second, third wins in their career, win Cy Youngs, compete for MVPs. Half the league won a championship after they left Detroit. I understand that, but let me just point something out, and people are going to hate this because it's not me defending Avila. It's honestly the truth. The issue wasn't that they traded Verlander. The issue wasn't that they traded JD Martinez or Justin Upton. The issue is that they traded him and got nothing back. Okay, if Al Avila would have done what a smart person was supposed to do and actually get a core back that was worth a shit, we wouldn't be lamenting the loss of all these great players, right? At the time, all those players were here and this team sucked. 2017, all those guys got traded. They were on essentially a last place team at the time, or close to it. They ended up finishing with the worst record in baseball after they traded those guys. Totally different scenario here with Tarik Skubal. I get asked the question all the time, and I say that I'm only going to answer this once, so I'm sure I'm going to answer it a million more times in the next year and a half. What's my prediction? My prediction is that he stays at the top of his game. He hits free agency and gets a bag thrown at him by another team. Do I think the Tigers make a competitive offer? I bet they do in the future. You see, I even hate that I'm talking about that. Now I'm falling into it. But yes, that is my prediction. I don't know what's going to happen, right? This could all be for naught. By the time I upload this podcast, they could give the guy an extension. My whole point is, why are we even focusing on that right now? Did you watch the guy on Friday? Was that not unbelievably fun to have a pitcher that after the first inning, we legitimately thought, dude, this guy might not give up a base runner all night. Had a perfect game going into the sixth. It was, and we saw a million people tweeting about it. It was to this generation what Verlander was to the last one, where it's like, you have to watch because there's a solid chance he's going to end up doing something special, or at least like run into the possibility that he's going to do something special. He might play around with history for a little bit. And I think we get so consumed with the idea of what the future might look like that we kind of ignore the present. Like, do I think this team wins 100 games? No. But all the things that we wanted from this organization over the last 7-8 years, which was a competitive product that employed smart people, that was playing for something. I remember in the blog that I wrote when Scott Harris was hired, it ended by saying, I don't know when this team's going to win the World Series. I don't even know when they're going to make the playoffs. All I want is to be 3 games back at Cleveland, and we got a home series coming up in which we got a chance to gain some ground. And we are at that place now. If it means 2 years from now, Tarik Skubal signs with another team, hey, man, that sucks, right? And that falls on Illich, ultimately. But I don't think we can ignore the really good things that are happening. And if I felt like they were fumbling this process, I'd say it. But this is a Boras client, and this is what Boras clients do. And the fact is, until proven otherwise, they're Tigers. And we are fortunate as fuck to see this guy. I'm swearing a lot. I don't really mean to see this guy on the mound every 5th day. And that's how it's going to continue to be. They're going to try to continue to build through their pitching with him as the ace and the scrappy young core. And for the time being, I wouldn't have it any other way. I do, and this will be the last point I make. I do in some ways. Now, I don't think that you should be filling, radio phone lines with it on, May 10th, but I do in some ways understand the trepidation that some fans might have, because I think there is a section of the fan base, and I wish I could put the ages on it necessarily, but I think it's people who are around my age, maybe a bit older, who, despite everything this team is doing, aren't going to buy in long-term until they see the big contract handed out. The way that we and preferably to a player who came up here, or we acquired when they were at a young point in their career. Like the extension we gave Verlander, like the extension we gave Miggy. I forgot about this, but like the extension we gave, Granderson. We obviously ended up trading him, but there was a time where we thought, this is our guy. I think that's a rather short-sighted way of looking at it. And quite frankly, I think that era, which is the Dombrowski, Illich, spend all to win all era, is we're not going to see that again. We're going to see it in a much different form. And that doesn't mean that they can't be successful. I mean, right now they have the best team in the American League with, the 24th highest payroll. So things will work themselves out. Okay, a lot can happen in this sport, and a lot can happen for this team over the next year and a half. I mean, I know he's struggling now, right? But what happens if a year and a half from now Jackson Jobe is ace level pitcher, right? Then what? Do you pay the both of them? I don't know. Things change. Present. Focus on the present, people. Okay. Tarik is here. He's amazing. He loves playing here. I do know that. I do know that he loves his fan base, and he loves Comerica, and he loves the staff that they have here. That is worth something. And that will be worth something when he hits the free agent market. But, I'll be well into my 30s by then. I might be a bit of a shorter show today, but I do want to talk about Michigan football or the tumult that exists within the Michigan football program in regard to this whole sign stealing thing. Got a couple things I want to cover. First off, Sherrone Moore and Michigan have done a self-imposed suspension. Sherrone Moore has been suspended for games 3 and 4 of the season. That is the Central Michigan game and the Nebraska game. right? Obviously, people are wondering, why didn't you just suspend him for the first 2 games of the season? Well, they didn't want to, for one, and two, that second game back in Norman against Oklahoma, big game for both teams, big game for both programs, and obviously a homecoming of sorts for Sherrone Moore, who played his college ball at Oklahoma. Self-imposed. Does that mean this is the end of it? No, it's not. And this is something that I haven't talked about a ton with this sign stealing investigation, because it's an investigation. I quite frankly find a lot of this boring. Like, what fucking universe are we living in where we're predicting what punishments are going to be? It's not my thing. It wouldn't be my thing if it was another program in this state. I typically kind of wait for these things to conclude, but there has been some news that we are going to talk about with it. And now we get one step closer to the conclusion, which that's the famous NCAA way, which is this shit takes 3 years to, put a stamp on. It looks like by June 6th, there is some sort of hearing in which things will be decided, and we'll get close to some clarity regarding what the future is going to look like for the Michigan football program here following all the Connor Stallions stuff. I haven't really talked a whole lot about how I feel about this, and I haven't talked a whole lot about what I think the punishments are going to be. People might say that what I'm about to say is very wishy-washy and on the fence. I would argue, no, what it is very objective and fair. If you are somebody who is waiting for Michigan's entire legacy from that 2021 to 2023 run to be taken, and for championships to be taken away and wins to be vacated, and the entire, them to basically get something close to the death penalty, you're going to be wildly disappointed. Okay. There has been no evidence over the last several years that any of those type of punishments are going to come Michigan's way. As of right now, Michigan is the definitive Big Ten champion 21, 22, and 23, and the definitive national champion in 2023. I do not see that changing. And as a fan, quite frankly, that's kind of all that matters to me. I was in the trenches with that team as a fan. That sounds kind of weird to say, but we were emotionally involved. I remember those memories. I can't take away those, the excitement, the cheers, and some instances, the tears and the happiness that we felt during that run. With that said, on the other side, if you're a Michigan fan and you actually think that Michigan did nothing wrong here, you're living in a fantasy land. Okay. Now, here's my genuine stance on the whole thing. Do I think that Michigan cheated? Do I think that they bent the rules with the Stallion stuff? Yes. The answer is yes. I think that they used, by definition, what was illegal sign stealing, illegal scouting in games. Very similar to the Houston Astros stuff. I feel like the reaction of people who believe that Michigan went from being fucking Rutgers to essentially, being a team that beat Bama solely because of the sign stealing stuff is whack. I also think, and Connor Stallions has talked about this, and some other people have kind of alluded to it as well, I don't think Michigan invented anything new. Okay. I think that other teams, other programs are finding other ways to get advantages, whether it's through illegal scouting, sign stealing, what have you. That doesn't make it right by any means, right? And if you get popped for it, you should get punished. But I do think, again, people were running with this whole notion of like, well, our program is clean and Michigan was dirty. Stop. Let me tell you something. I hate to tell you Santa Claus doesn't exist. If you think your program's pure, it ain't. It's not. It's not. And if it is, congratulations going 4-8 next year. I hate that, right? Like in an ideal world, like everyone's, clean and happy, but there's a lot of money at stake and there's a lot of legacies at stake and there's a lot of jobs at stake. This is how stuff works in college football. I also do believe that the Big Ten and the NCAA as a whole had a closer eye on Michigan than almost anybody else because, let's face it, Jim Harbaugh annoys a lot of people and still does annoy a lot of people. Some of that I think is very fair criticism. Some of that I think is not so fair criticism. But I do think to an extent they were watching this program like a hawk to find something that they could bury them for. With all of that said, you break it down into basic terms, he still broke the rules. And Michigan will get punished for it. I haven't had any real stance on what I think the punishment is going to be. The way that I felt from the beginning has been If they're not getting their title taken away, it's not that big a deal to me. That's changed a little bit because I do think for Michigan fans, the punishment that this program receives is going to be harsher than they expect. No, I don't think they get their title taken away. But I think that, I don't know how safe Sherrone Moore's job is right now. And it's kind of crazy because if you're talking about who's to blame for all this stuff, I mean, Sherrone isn't at the top of that list, right? I'm not going to say he did nothing wrong, but he's not the mastermind behind the whole thing. He's just the last guy that's still here, right? Minter gone, Harbaugh gone, right? So he is the head of the program right now, meaning that he is potentially the one who's most likely to get punished. The postseason ban thing, I think it's definitely possible. But I think in Michigan's attempt to try to stand up, and go nose to nose with the NCAA, I think that it has pissed the NCAA off even more. And I think that the punishment may end up being a little bit harsher than what we expect just because Michigan has dragged out this process. And I'm not saying that from top to bottom it's been handled well. Like, I'll be completely honest with you guys. I think Harbaugh getting suspended in the middle of the season in 23, well, ultimately it galvanized the team. And hey, thank you. Like, they won the national championship. I don't think that was right. I think that was a reactive punishment based on the Big Ten being upset with this investigation. I don't think that you should suspend really anybody until you've had some completion of an investigation. Now, it didn't matter, right? I mean, Michigan beat Ohio State without a head coach, and they ended up, getting Harbaugh back and winning the national championship. But the point I'm trying to make is that I don't think the NCAA has played this perfectly every step of the way, and Michigan sure as hell hasn't. But I think the punishment that they get at this point is it's probably deserved. Now, if the title's taken away, then I'll carry a much different tune. But I think that they've kind of made things worse for themselves to an extent with dragging this whole thing out. Ultimately, if you're Michigan, you got what you wanted out of this. The legacy is there. You've turned your program around. You won the national championship. Just cooperate. But, college football is a huge, huge business, and it's a huge brand at Michigan, and anything that could potentially harm that brand, they're going to fight for. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then you get popped and you get into trouble. I don't really have much else to say about that because I think that there is a much bigger argument that people have regarding just kind of the legacy of those teams. And it's where, I'll be honest, it's difficult for me to be objective as a fan. I see Michigan's run 21-23. To me, it's legitimate. And I say that because, yeah, I'm a fan and I fell in love with those teams and they mattered to me. And the 23 team especially was, that was a kind of a weird part of my life. And I love that team to death. So, of course, to me, it's legitimate. And, of course, to Michigan fans, it's legitimate. We went through it together, It's like vacating wins or saying that something is taken away. It's like, I think Colin Cowherd made this analogy before. It's like going on vacation, taking vacation pictures, and then somebody told you the vacation didn't happen. Like, I remember running down Main Street in Ann Arbor after Michigan won the national championship. It was the first night I met Austin. Like, these were core memories for me. I don't know how the rest of the world is going to judge that run. And quite frankly, in this particular instance, I don't really care. I'm sorry, but I don't think college football fan or average college football consumer is necessarily the end all be all in regards to intelligence. And I speak as somebody who is in that camp. Like, what fucking, I don't know, Purdue fans think about Michigan's run. I could give a shit. Ultimately, we were there for it, and now you have to face the punishment. I guess the last point that I'll make is can we stop with the celebrity status of Connor Stallions, please? And this probably means I'll never get him on Chris and Company. I'd be welcome to have him on. And it's not even me saying that he's a bad guy, but I just like the ultimate truth with this that does frustrate me. Now, it doesn't keep me up at nights and doesn't change the way I feel about the team. But in my heart of hearts, when I saw the way that team played, all those teams played, and the energy they brought and the leadership they had, similar to the Astros winning it all in 2017, I genuinely think they were and could have been champions without the bells and whistles. And so I get annoyed that there's that little wrinkle. That's how I stand on it. I don't know. And I'm sure people will be passionate about it, and they always are. But that's my vibe. All right, that'll do it for the crux of the show. There's a couple things that I want to get out of the way here. Austin did a good job of putting it on our banner on YouTube, but I want to just point this out. We are affiliated now with StubHub. So in the link or in the description for this video, I will have the link that you can go to if you want to get tickets to games at Comerica Park this year and use the link that we provide. Austin and I get a little something on the back end, so anything to help us out would definitely mean a lot. Obviously, all the fixings, like, subscribe, follow us on YouTube and everything. I know I've been talking about this a lot and whoring myself out a little bit, but I'm going to continue to promote the fact that if you are listening to this or watching the show on June 6th, which is a Friday, Austin and I will be at the Lone Goat, a 5-minute walk from Comerica Park for a Detroit Tiger fan get-together / watch party. I think we're going to work on some, maybe banners or, mini posters this week to try to put some stuff out there to help promote it. I really want to hammer this. Part of it is ego because I don't want to be there. Somebody made a joke. I think it was Jed actually in our group chat said, I want people to come to your thing, but if they don't, and you're sitting alone at a place called the Lone Goat, the jokes will kind of write themselves. I'm like, yeah, it's true. But truly, I think it's a great opportunity because maybe a misconception. I don't think I lead people on with this. I don't get to that many games. I will be there all weekend, but I think it's just a really interesting opportunity for us to experience a game together as fans, as this community that we've grown and we've seen evolve over the years. And yes, it is an opportunity for me to celebrate my 30th birthday, but shit, dude, I haven't had a birthday party since forever. This is very special to me, and I'd love to be able to interact with fans and we can watch a game together. For that day, I will be staying through the game. We will be watching the entirety of that game at the Lone Goat. I'll be at the park the next 2 days. I'm not going to be going around with a sachet, waving people like it's a beauty pageant, but we're welcome to stop by and say hi. Cubs fans travel well, so it should be a really interesting series. What else should be an interesting series as well is if I just remember this, we play the Red Sox, so welcome back to Detroit, Alex Bregman. Let's give him a nice warm welcome this week. So I'm really all over the place, but I just want to throw that stuff out there and say that information will be given out. A little more information will be given out about that over time in the next few weeks as we draw closer to it. But I'm really looking forward to that, and hopefully we can get a nice turnout. I will be going down to the Lone Goat at some point over the next few weeks to kind of scout the place out and finalize it. But we are in the books. It is definitely happening, and you guys are a big reason for that. All right, that will do it for today's show. Already mentioned YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify, on CastellaniContent.com. That is getting updated every single day. I'm trying to think, because last week we had a reschedule, and then we had one guy that no-showed. But this week for Chris and Company, Dennis Lawson, who played Wedge Antilles in the original Star Wars trilogy, will be doing our show. He is a Scottish actor, been acting for a long time, but obviously very famous for the work that he did in Star Wars. That should be a lot of fun. I appreciate the reception in Jackson Kohler interview as well. I thought that was great. So we're going to continue rolling with that over the next few weeks. We've been very consistent with Chris and Company and getting guests, and I thank Austin a ton for being a big part of that and helping get some of our biggest guys. So yeah, that will do it for today's show. Appreciate y'all very much. We'll be back here next week with another I'll Say This. Back later this week with another Chris and Company. Have a great week. Screw that up. Peace and happiness.